Cardinal, a Batfam Podfic written and illustrated by the Royal Librarian and read by and with musical accompaniment by Your Stories. Chapter 17 On Nemesis, which means the recollection of memories from a previous life. Warnings for past attempted suicide. Be at your own risk. Let's get into the chapter. Cass takes her time making her way back to the family, her mind spinning over everything she just learned. It wasn't that she didn't believe her father and brothers when they told her of this new development, but believing and seeing it were more different realities than she'd anticipated. Cass smiles. She has another brother. A brother who is awkward and funny. A brother who is fundamentally kind and compassionate, who wants so badly to do right by the people he loves. Cass's smile fails. A brother who is in pain of his own making. The family has already moved out of the dining room and settles into the study, already in discussion. They haven't seen her yet, so Cass just leans into the doorway and listens as they all throw out their own opinions of the evening. Of Tim. I told you he was a little shit, Jason raves, sounding put upon. But Cass can tell he's finding back his actual amusement. Duke smiles unabashed. I like him, he says outright. I think things went alright, all things considered, though he did not seem happy about our little scheme. I don't think he would have stayed at all if not for Alfred. Indeed, sir, Alfred remarks neutrally. Cass smirks, observing how very proud of himself he is over the fact. Steph leans back into the sofa thoughtfully. He seems a little surprisingly normal considering everything we know about him. Damon scoffs. Yes, you fool, then. He's no more normal than the rest of us. Ha! Duke laughs. Speak for yourself. Dick turns to Damien curiously. Has he really taken photos of us without us knowing? In the mask? Damien hesitates, but nods. From what I understand, he's been doing it since he was a child. Jason frowns. Like, before he was Robin. Perhaps. Damien responds cryptically. His face is conflicted, closed off. He doesn't elaborate. Huh, Jason cocks his head. He must be one sneaky son of a bitch. Damien just nods again. Cass looks over her youngest brother, sadly. This hasn't been easy on him. His reinstated memories have altered him, not drastically, but enough for Cass to see his countenance. He's heavier than he was before, guiltier. Of what, Cass doesn't know and probably won't unless she too regains her memories. She hopes she will. Getting her brother back at all will be enough, but she wants to remember their bond, to recall whatever experiences they shared that made him look at her so fondly, the entire family with such love in his eyes. Damien, it seems, saw that fondness too. He was almost neutral at the beginning of dinner, a touch nervous, perhaps even a bit guilty for tricking Tim into that situation in the first place. But that was to be expected. But as the night went on and Tim began to openly banter with the others, Damien withdrew even further into himself. That same guilt he's been carrying for days was evident. But so was something else. Jealousy. As if he wished for the same camaraderie Tim offered the others. That was his interpretation anyway, but Cass saw the truth. How Tim was simply already comfortable with him in a way he wasn't with the others yet. He inquired after Damien almost as soon as he'd gotten his own bearings. He didn't banter with Damien because Damien wasn't engaging in it, but Tim was still concerned with him, him and gave him space out of consideration, not favoritism. Still, Damien was perfectly happy to throw him under the bus in that insulting way of his that reads more like teasing than actually insults to anyone who knows Damien. Tim took it in stride, even as he was decidedly shocked at Damien's easy knowledge of him. Cass wonders if they ever bonded over their shared love of the visual arts in the other timeline. Those two will have a lot to work through once everything comes to light. There's clearly plenty of history between them, a record of hurt and hurting, but the affection both brothers hold for each other is obvious to Cass, even if it isn't to each other. Cass, Barbara calls out, finally noticing her. The others turn their attention to Cass, and she nods in greeting. There's a weight of expectation in their gazes that she has learned to both accept and embrace. The hope for others, answers only she can give. It's suffocating sometimes. The weight of that responsibility, but necessary. A burden she gladly bears, especially for the sake of her family. Well, Bruce probes, his anxiety palpable. Cass furrows her brow, gazing down at the floor sadly. He is in pain, she tells them softly, but he cares about us. All of us. Very much. Silence fills the room to absorb that. Steph breaks in with a dramatic huff. Now what's his problem? We invited him to stay, didn't we? He wanted to stay, Cass tells her adamantly, and he was angry at himself for wanting it. Bullshit, Jason mutters to himself. Why does he have to make it so complicated? Why is he so convinced that we reject him? Cass hesitates, not wanting to cause any undue hurt, but well. The truth is the truth, and if any of them gain their memories, it's bound to be known at some point. I expect he has some unresolved trauma, she tells them. He seems convinced he doesn't have a place here. The family looks at each other in confusion. Why would he think that? Dick breathes. Gus shrugs. I do not know. The gathering turns almost as one towards Damien for some sort of explanation. Damien just gazes forlornly at the ground, a wall between guilt and sorrow battling for dominance in his body language. Duke leans closer beside him. Damie, he tries to place a comforting hand on his shoulder, but Damien immediately pushes him off and stands, agitated. I told you, he grits. We had many issues before. Okay, Jason drawls, unconvinced. His need to know more shifting into frustration. But that was just between you two, right? And we've seen he cares about you, Duke points out sagely. Whatever issue you must have had must have been minor enough. Damien looks away. Gus can see the weight of that whatever knowledge he has been bearing down on him, suffocating him with the responsibility of choices that were once his and others that weren't. There were other conflicts that could have left him feeling cast aside. Bruce frowns, a touch of defensiveness creeping into his posture. What are you talking about, Damien? Cass watches Damien consider it for a moment. Considers telling them what he knows. Then a resolve hardens into place, both for the sake of him and for the mercy of everybody else. It isn't my place to tell you, he says definitively. Seeing as you're the only one here who knows shit about this, I'd say it's your fucking place. Jason snaps. Jason, Bruce says sharply. Damien clenches his jaw. It was your lives, he snaps. I can't begin to know how any of you felt, what experiences you had with any of us did what we did. Damien shakes his head adamantly. My mistakes are my own, but it isn't my place to inform you of events I only heard about, he repeats. If you want to know what happened, you have to remember yourself. With that, Damien storms out of the room, his emotions hot and exposed like a live wire. Bruce stands as if to follow, but Cass blocks his path. Let him go, she instructs. He is right. It isn't his job to explain our own choices in another life. Bruce stares at her, debating whether or not he'll listen to her judgment, but ultimately yielding to her wisdom. He backs away and slumps back down onto the sofa. You're right, Bruce has grown a lot in a few years that Cass has known him. He's a perfectionist in every aspect of his life, including fatherhood. He will always do what he believes is right for his children, and if it kills him when the aftermath of those choices proves to be wrong. Even though it was quite literally impossible for Bruce to know what Tim had done until now, he's still taking it on himself as a personal failing. To think that he may have done wrong by Tim, even in another life, to such an extent that it still affects him? Bruce wants to fix it, and he doesn't know how. Dick sighs from beside him in commiseration, holding his head in his hand. You heard Satana, Bruce, says kindly. We can't force this, and we can't force Damien either. This is already difficult enough for him. Dick's stress is rooted in his natural empathy, his deep need to do right by people who cares about. He wants his brother back, like they all do, but he also wants to be there for him. Tim has already proven how much he cares for this family, how far he's willing to go for them, even at the expense of himself. Dick hates when people get hurt for his sake, and he needs to make it right. I think, Alfred speaks up, we should all get some much needed rest. If our memories are rooted in our dreams, then let us see what comes to us tonight. Bruce nods in agreement, gazing up and around at his remaining children and allies. Dick, Jason, and I will patrol tonight. We'll keep an eye out for the leak, though I doubt they'll approach with Damien home. He turns to Steph and Cass. The dreams are unpredictable. What we dream and how much we remember is completely individual, he reminds them. I encourage everyone to record anything they can recall upon waking. In my experience, most of it is gone within a few minutes. Jason narrows his eyes, gazing at Bruce suspiciously. Most of it? He questions. Bruce hesitates, but ultimately ignores the observation. With any luck, our interaction tonight will trigger something. He looks between the two girls. Let me know how it goes for both of you in the morning. The family slowly starts to filter out, either to bed or patrol respectively. Steph walks alongside Cass as they make their way out of the family wing. Steph hesitates at the door, tossing a crooked grin over her shoulder to Cass. Well, she smirks. Here goes nothing. There's a flicker of apprehension beneath the bravado, a tension in her shoulders that belies her smile. Cass huffs, nodding once to before moving on to her room. It's still a few hours before she would normally sleep, but Cass lays down anyway, body heavy, limbs loose as she stretches across the mattress. She begins breathing meditatively, inhaling through her nose, holding, exhaling through her mouth, hoping to lull her body into resting sooner. The ceiling above is a dark, familiar sight. Cass thinks She should probably be nervous. Despite trying to hide it, Steph is at least somewhat uneasy about the prospect of recovering their memories. Cass doesn't blame her. They don't know what their lives looked like before, and if Damien's behavior is any indicator, that wasn't necessarily a good one. It should frighten Cass, but it doesn't. Fear doesn't even cross her mind. She feels focused, steady. A hum of resolve sits beneath her skin. She is ready for whatever the dreams bring. Her breath slowly eases as she allows herself to slip into unconsciousness. Her last thoughts resting on her new brother and how desperately she wants to bring him home. Steph dreams of a life so similar to her own. Her father's betrayal, her rise to spoiler, the hard-earned independence that always felt just out of reach. She still crashes into the same walls, still forces herself to get back up. The mask, the bruises, the stubborn pride, getting the attention of a certain crew of bats and birds. It's all there. Only this time, there's just one in the beginning. Robin. Her Robin. He's young, his voice softer, less guarded. Understand all the responsibilities you have. You don't need to add to them by worrying about me, she tells him. I always worry about you, he mumbles without meeting her eyes. Steph laughs, leading in just enough to nudge his shoulder. You worry about everyone. Not like I worry about you, he says, quiet and raw. She feels a love so strong it could ruin her. In many ways, it does, burning too fast and too hard for either of them to come out unscathed. Twin flames. They fight, they fall apart, not out of hatred, never that, but from the crushing weights of their own lives, the responsibilities and burdens they can't bear to share. They separate for a time. There are trials to be had, mistakes to be made, distance needed for them both to grow, and they do. They learn, they forgive, they heal. What blooms in the aftermath is something just as profound. Friendship, the likes of which she's never known. The kind that knows all the worst parts of her and cares anyway. And always will. Saving the world is a complex problem, he sighs, collapsing beside her on a rooftop. I'm doing my best, but I feel like my best could be so much better. Steph sits next to him, bumping into his shoulder fondly. One life at a time, right? Tim smiles. Yeah, maybe. This is what happens when little bird flies out of his nest too soon. Backhand, forehand, laughter, crowbar, and rinse, repeat. Repeating feels almost familiar now. Jason's mind may not retain a memory of it when he wakes up, but within his dreamscape, he knows he's relived this particular memory countless times now. Sometimes he relives it as if he's experiencing it. Sat in that chair, bound, his Robin suit torn and bloody. He feels the pain, the fear, and most crushing, the hope. He was so sure Bruce would comfort him. Other times, like now, Jason watches the scene unfold before him like a bystander, a witness to the tragedy. He can't interfere. It's already over, written in dried blood. Nothing can be done to change it. Not even Tim's interference can erase the stain. Jason stands just behind Joker's shoulder, watching his younger self try and hold in every cry, every flinch. They don't want to give him satisfaction, though he got it in the again. His mind drifts even as he watches, eyes fixed on that damn crowbar as the Joker begins it down over and over again. And then the dream starts to move. The beating continues. An arm coming down hard on the smaller life body, but it isn't a crowbar anymore now. It's a boast of. And this isn't his younger face he's looking down at anymore. They said I wasn't tough enough to be Robin. Jason growls, bring the stolen staff down again, only for his prey to dodge properly, this time scampering a few feet away. Jason smirks, talking closer. But today, they say you are. Show me, Tim. Show me what you have that I didn't. Jason swings hard and fast, fueled by something deeper than anger. Something bitter and ugly. Tim keeps dodging, clever, tactical, slipping through every strike. The pit of rage surges through his veins like wildfire. A force outside himself, yet impeded within, screaming for justice, for answers, for blood. What makes this hit so much better? Each hit he lands on him isn't just a marked failure or bruise. It's a threat, a judgment, a punishment. This is what Bruce deserves for trying to replace him, for pretending Jason wasn't expendable all along. The genius protege is bitterly, letting another hit into Robin's side. One who could deduce Batman's identity when no one else could. That one everyone whispers about, smarter, sharper, more like Batman than even Batman himself. Jason's sick. He refuses to believe it, clings to the rage clawing through him. The pit screaming that this kid is nothing special, just another scrawny, desperate teenager Bruce molded into a weapon. Jason is barely even conscious of the words tumbling from his mouth. You solved the mystery no one else could. You discovered who he was behind the mask. Millionaire Bruce Wayne. You were so pleased with yourself. I'm sure that you forgot who you were really dealing with. I know Bruce Wayne, and let me tell you, Tim, if someone was trying to find out who Batman really was, if someone was stalking him for weeks, he'd know about it. You can't be that good. Jason throws another punch. Tim is already ducking under it and popping up on Jason's other side. For a split second, Jason catches a glimpse of the look in his eye, resolve setting in, a determination that will keep him alive for years to come. I am. Tim throws a solid punch right across the side of Jason's mouth. It whips his head to the side, blood welling up in his gums. Jason cradles his jaw, the all-consuming rage intensifying. The pain gives him focus, the blood gives him vindication. Jason turns back slowly, eyes wild, lips close into something that isn't quite a smile. Tim's already moving, trying to get away, but not fast enough. Jason stalks after him like a predator, steps heavy and unrelenting. Then he lunges. He slams into Tim with full force, driving him to the ground. The impact rattles him through them both. But Jason doesn't stop. He straddles Tim and brings his fist down. This will teach him. But someone supposedly so smart is incredibly, unbelievably stupid. Didn't his parents ever teach him not to take what wasn't his? Jason wakes with a gasp. Gus dreams of seemingly unconnected fragments. She observes her mother, cold, harsh, and demanding as ever, but solid and undeniably impressive. The dream shifts. Cass, right? A boy asks, his face kind yet Got it. Welcome to Anna. Cass isn't confident with her words yet, so she simply nods, signing a simple "thank you." He signs "you're welcome" back to her. Cass smiles. Dodge hit block. She sees her mother's form in the boy, just as solid and unyielding, but it doesn't suit him. The boy knows coolness personally, was probably raised with it. He can harness it and use it as a tool, but it doesn't belong to him. That's enough humility for one day. He pants, collapsing on the mat in an exhausted heap. Cass smiles, wiping the sweat off her face. "You're better. Quick learner." One image fades into another, a different place, a different time. He's gone through hell. He's different. Cass isn't sure it's for the better. He's harder than he was. Sadder. "Things have settled down in Gotham," he says haltingly, bruises back. "The family has settled down. I thought maybe it was time to make it official." He hands her a bundle of black fabric, an emblem of a bat facing up for her to see. Cass swallows. "There is a bad girl," she reminds him. "Stephanie needs it." "And what do you need?" "To just..." Cass exhales. "Be. Call yourself whatever you want," he says. "The point is, just don't forget, you have a family." "Thank you," Cass says earnestly. "But family is not always home." Her brother nods like he knows, like he understands. Cass finds herself in a dark maze of tunnels, catacombs, she realizes. Cass follows the distress signal, rushing down the corridors, praying she's not too late. A few more minutes, and she might have been. Cass is good at what she does, good at pain and violence, though she rarely enjoys it. But in this moment, Cass has no pity, no remorse for the daughter of Acheron as she cuts her down, naked and vulnerable. "Thanks for saving me from a fate not quite worse than death," her brother jokes, pretending he isn't as shaken, and she knows he is. She doesn't call him on it, but internally she hopes he knows just how much she cares about him. To her, such things are obvious. Words aren't necessary when she can read the love of a person just as easily as anger or fear. Maybe she'll find the words to give him the validation he needs. Someday. Her brother deserves so much more than what has been allowed to him. Despite what he wanted and others to think, despite what he's good at making people believe, the boy is made of pure hope and determination, an unyieldingness to make things better, where he knows they can be. But the world and the people in it, not so easily changed. An immovable object and an unstoppable force. And her brother is so vulnerable. His crash is inevitable. It's pure luck she finds him when she does, standing precariously balanced on the edge of a rooftop. A trained robber never struggles with such a thing as rudimentary as balance, yet her brother sways in the wind as if he's undecided whether or not he would just let it take him. Cass lets the absolute fear and heartbreak at the sight wash over her for just a second before she's stalking forward silently. Never has a stealth been so important. He is one of the most difficult to sneak up on in the family, second only to her in situational awareness. Yet her brother is clearly stuck too far inside his own head at the moment. Cass doesn't waste any time, and within seconds she has his cape in hand, pulling him far back from the edge and pinning him face down, his wrists trapped behind his back. Only then does she allow the panic to grip her, the fear to make itself known what exactly she almost just lost. Stupid, she mutters, angry tears falling from her unbidden eyes. Stupid brother. Tim doesn't fight her, doesn't do anything but slump. The will to fight drained from him in a way she's never seen before. Cass turns over and cups his face, looking for answers in his movements, in his expressions. Her ability to read someone has never failed her so terribly. What seemed as if the very life of her brother has already drained out of him, leaving a shell of a person she hardly recognizes. Cass has always been away too long. How could she not know? How could any of them not have seen? Cass doesn't leave him alone for the next few days, ensuring he eats and sleeps. He doesn't protest as much as she would have expected. Life returns to his eyes a bit as they spend time together, but not enough for Cass to truly feel comfortable leaving again. Cass debates whether or not she should tell the family. It would be a betrayal. He may never trust her again, but she values his life more than she values his trust. Still, she isn't sure what the right path forward is. Finally, Cass sits him down. Her emotions are so volatile, she can't bear to speak the words. So she signs them, putting every ounce of feeling into her emotions, willing her brother to see, to feel her love for him, and just how much he scared her. By the end of it, they're both crying. Cass holds her brother as he finally allows himself to feel the sadness he's been numbing himself to. She knows he's in pain, but it's a necessary pain. Pain means he's alive. Pain means his brain is telling the rest of his body that it still needs to survive. Ultimately, Cass gives him a choice. He'll either get help on his own terms, keeping Cass updated the whole way, or she'll tell Dick. The threat strains that relationship for time. Rightfully so, but it works. With time and consistent support, he starts to get better. Therapy teaches him how to deal with previously buried trauma. His relationship with the rest of the family begins to steadily improve. He even confides to Steph about what happened. It isn't perfect, but Tim is alive. And even better, he is glad to be alive. He finds his purpose again. His dedication to making the world better returns in full. A force she hopes will never be stopped again. Cass wakes not with a gasp or a shout, but with a peaceful inhale and exhale. Something she didn't know she was missing slots into place. She remembers. The memories are there, present but not overwhelming. Like another perspective, a viewpoint of her life she recalls with such clarity, yet it doesn't change her current circumstance. She is still herself, now with extra knowledge of what could have been, but wasn't. The memories are hers. They belong to her, but she doesn't belong to them. This life now is hers, but that doesn't mean what happened then has no bearing on the now. Oh, Tim. Wonderful, caring, self-sacrificing Tim. She understands why he did it, and knowing what she does about him again, she can't even blame him. To Tim, there wouldn't have been no other choice once he realized Damien was truly gone. He's always given himself to the family, even when they wouldn't always return the courtesy. He was doing so well. Everything was getting better before. And now he's lived for years by himself, isolated, alone. He's surviving though, not letting the numbness overtake him like she knows is his natural inclination. He's letting himself feel the pain, at least in doses, or perhaps he's done well to avoid it altogether. Not so recently. The fact is as much of a relief as it is a concern. It isn't necessary, his pain. Cass knows he always had a hard time believing it, but the family always cared for him. The circumstances of the previous timeline were in many ways felt the worst by Tim and his precarious introduction to the family. Like Damien, Cass wasn't there for any of that, but she knows it affected him and is still affecting his perceptions. Both his insecurities and his desire to make the world better has convinced him the family will somehow be happier without him. It isn't true. Kat has long since felt an absence she could never put into words. A hole in their formations, a blind spot that should have been covered, a voice missing from the banter. On a subconscious level, they've all made room for a person that isn't there. But he can be. It won't be easy, despite no one else physically living the other timeline. Tim did. There will be hurts to be healed, conversations to be had, assurances to be made. But it's possible. Tim made it possible. Cass shakes her head fondly. For someone who was so determined to eradicate their existence from the memories of those he loved, he inadvertently created the perfect environment for him to be welcomed back home. Cass may disagree with his methods, but she can't argue the results. The family is closer now, happier, and they will be all the more happy to bring their final member home. Damien is up with the sun as per usual after nights he hasn't patrolled. He hasn't dreamed much since remembering, but he still sleeps fitfully, his mind awash with comparisons and the then and now. His feelings and emotions have been all over the place, constantly swinging from righteous fury to suffocating guilt. He was excited at first about the prospect of cornering Timothy, but after that conversation at the ovens, he just felt sick with the contrition for forcing him into what was likely a very uncomfortable situation. Until, of course, the dinner itself and Drake's flippant quick about it being Damien's family, not his. Damien reined himself in for the most part, allowing Drake to engage in banter with the rest of the family. He should have been happy to see it, should have been relieved. Instead, all he could fear was jealousy and deep self loathing. The two of them had never had that sort of relationship, even at the end, when Damien's respect for him was at an all time high. They never had that kind of camaraderie. Everyone in the family had their own issues with each other at some point, sure, but there was always affection between them. With Damien and Tim, their relationship was founded on a mutual animosity. Over time, that animosity was felt less personal and more just how they were. Like they didn't know any other way to interact with each other. Before his memories came back, Damien would have considered them friends, or at least friends adjacent. Despite being his intern, he respected Timothy, and he seemed to respect Damien in turn. He's been patient, kind, helpful, even though Damien didn't deserve such kindness. With everything Damien did to Tim, he should hate him, even now. They were on their way to better terms in the past life, sure, but Never once did Damon apologize for the multitude of injuries he gave him, for the multiple attempts on his life, and Tim just accepted that. Like he didn't even expect an apology in the first place. And then he gave it all. His whole life for Damien's life. Although the more he thinks about it, the less certain Damien is that it was really for him at all. Damien knows his death would have torn the family apart again in the grand scheme of things. It seems far more likely Timothy did it for them. Damien sighs, finishing getting dressed for the day and wondering how the hell he's going to get through another day at the office without giving himself away. Timothy has always been the best detective amongst them all. He doesn't have Cass's level of skill of reading body language, but he isn't a novice. He knew something was up yesterday, and he's probably equated that with the plan to entrap him into another dinner. Damien has no such excuse to explain any oddities of his behavior today. Damien is just about to leave and go down to the kitchen for breakfast when he hears a firm knock at the door. Before he can even call out a "Come in!" it opens and Jason enters, his breathing unsteady and his eyes a bit unfocused. Damien frowns. Jason normally isn't up until at least 10 a.m. after a full patrol. Jason? Damien starts. Are you alright? Jason just exhales, slumping against the wall, his expression stormy and his muscles tight, like he's preparing for a fight. Damien takes a cautious step closer, possibility springing to his mind as he views his brother's obvious disorientation. Did you dream? Jason swallows and nods once. What do you remember? He asks anxiously. Not much, he finally speaks. I can usually hold onto the feelings, pain, and violence. I think. I think I've been remembering my death. Damien holds back a wince. But then, I think there's more. No. He shakes his head, locking eyes with Damien. I know there's more. Damien swallows. It was almost the same, he says, his eyes narrowing, but this time there's this one image that stuck with me. Which was? Damien manages. Jason flinches, tightening his jaw. Tim, beaten and bloody under me. Damien holds his gaze, but only just. Jason straightens himself and steps closer to him. But that isn't possible. It can't be possible. Jason gets into Damien's space, his face muddled with confusion, desperation. Because I died. You said I died. You did die, Damien affirms, softly in stark contrast to Jason's raised voice. Then why do I remember Tim? He demands. My life before shouldn't have been any different than the one I lived here, with the exception of my death. Wanna explain to me why I seem to remember beating a certain Robin within an inch of his life? Damien winces, taking a step back. Jason sighs, and takes a step back too, suddenly aware of his actions. Damien watches him try to center himself, breathing deeply. Jason keeps backing up until his back hits the wall, then suddenly lets gravity pull him to the ground. He buries his head into his knees, continuing his deep breathing. Damien watches him trepidatiously, fighting with himself on how much he should say. Jason deserves the truth, especially now, but how can Damien tell him when he barely knows the half of it? How can he give him the context he doesn't have? How could he possibly begin to explain the aftermath, the bond that eventually formed between him and Tim, despite all the odds against it? A minute passes before Jason sighs deeply, looking back up at Damien. I understand it's not your responsibility to tell us these things. I do, he says truthfully, his eyes pleading. But please, baby bat, I need some sort of explanation here. Damien swallows and nods once, moving over to sit beside Jason on the floor, deciding to just thumb the bones of it. That's as much as he really knows, anyways. He wasn't part of the family yet, but he knows the basics. How it fundamentally altered his father, changed the very course of the family. You died, Damien reaffirms gently. And then you came back. Jason squints. What do you mean, back? I don't know everything, Damon prefaces, choosing his words carefully. My mother found you alive, but you were practically brain dead. She put you in her Lazarus pit to revive your consciousness, but Jason exhales sharply. No one comes out of the Lazarus pit the same, he fills in. Yes. Jason slumps further into the wall. They stay silent for a few minutes, Damon allowing Jason to absorb the revelation. And then Jason starts suddenly, his voice unsteady. I tried to kill Tim? Damien frowns thoughtfully, carefully considering everything he heard about that time. I honestly don't know if that was your intention. You certainly could have if you wanted to, but Tim survived with only a few additional scars to show for it. That isn't as comforting to Jason as Damien intended. Jason flinches, his face contorting into an ugly grimace. He scoffs with a bitter shake of his head. No wonder he doesn't want anything to do with us, or with me. Damien hesitates. I think it's a bit more complicated than that. Jason looks over at him. What do you mean? Damon fidgets, avoiding his eye. Let's just say you weren't the only one to make an attempt on his life, he admits. Jason sits up straighter. I'm not proud of it, Damien states clearly, but it did happen. I wasn't in the league for much longer. My mentality was different. I saw Timothy as a threat. Not that that's any excuse. Huh. Jason breathes after a moment, slumping back into the wall and letting out a dry laugh, edged with disbelief. He had two of us going after him, and he still never went 6 feet under. He shakes his head, half amused, half incredulous. Guess he's pretty good at keeping himself alive. Damien smirks. I used to curse that exact fact. Jason chuckles slowly, but his expression goes back to contemplative fairly quickly, his analytical side taking over again. Yet, he still did all this, turned back the clock to save your life, save my life. Let you be his intern. Any normal person would be well within their rights to let us rot in hell, and yet Jason shakes his head fondly, letting out another dry laugh. Is he actually insane? A small smile tugs at Damien's lips. There must be something severely wrong with him, yes. Jason hums thoughtfully, or maybe he fiddles with the hem of his jacket. Maybe he's just a good brother. Damien swallows, his voice going soft. Brothers too tend to fight, he parrots in agreement. And they forgive. Another voice joins. Jason and Damien both tense, the only physical tell of their surprise, and turn to see Carl leaning casually in the doorway from where she was evidently listening in. Damien's frown deepens as her words sink in, holding her eye as she stares at him with such assurance. Cass steps into the room fully. Tim had forgiven both of you for what happened before he changed things. It's why he changed things, because he loves all of us. I understand the guilt you may have. She looks from Damien to Jason and back again. But you needn't have it for his sake. Damien frowns at the specific wording. How? How do you know that for certain? Cass just smiles. Damien stands suddenly as the realization strikes him. You remember everything? What? How is that fair? Jason demands, standing as well behind Damien. You see the kid for a few hours and poof! He gestures dramatically. Everything comes back. Cass smirks slightly. Just lucky, I guess. That can't be it. Jason grumbles, real frustration tinging his voice. Cass sombers and shrugs one shoulder. I truly don't understand it any more than you do, but to be fair, I do have less traumatic experiences with him than you do. Jason glares. I really don't like that you both know what happened. He swallows. What I did. While I'm over here floundering for scraps of information. Cass places a gentle hand on his shoulder. It doesn't change anything, he says earnestly, and a significant amount of tension leaves Jason's frame. Everyone in the family knows Carls never lies if she can help it. It will come back eventually, when you're ready for it. Cass turns her gaze to Damien, and he immediately looks away, not ready to face someone who knows, who really knows what everything he's done, who knows of all his mistakes, of his egregious flaws. Cass doesn't reach out to touch him, seeming to know better. You were a manipulated child, she says softly. Tim knew this. He forgave you. I promise. Damien swallows. Forgive me if I can't simply take your word for it. He will tell you himself, she says decisively. Eventually. Jason shifts. You and Tim were close then, before? I am his sister, she says simply. Then do you have any new insights on how we should move forward? Cass cocks her head in thought. Patiently. Damien was correct in his assessment. If we overwhelm him, he may run. She faces Damien again. Be careful today, but do not censor yourself too harshly, or he will know. Damien looks down, old feelings of deep-rooted inadequacy, ones he thought he'd long outgrown, rising sharply to the surface. And if I fall? If I reveal myself too soon? Cass shrugs. Then we move a timetable up, she says easily. Like it really is that easy. Like there isn't a significantly high chance Damien will screw this up for everyone. Cass's eyes soften, reading his fear and anxiety. I want him to come home. Willingly, she prefaces, and then smirks. But there is nothing friendly in it. The smile is all promise and terrifying revolution. But make no mistake, he will be coming home one way or another. No one, not even Tim, can stop that now. Jason gives an exaggerated shiver. Jesus, I forget how terrifying you can be. Cass smirks innocently. Just get going, Damie. I'll speak to Bruce and the others, inform them of the development. Jason nods. I'll go with you. He looks over at Damien. They should probably know what you told me so they aren't shocked when they find out later. Fair, Cass agrees. That time was very intense for everyone. Jason huffs. Yeah, I bet that's one way of putting it. Mouth suddenly lights up in his eyes. Nick is gonna be so mad you remembered before him. Cass is unmoved. Duh. Steph chooses that exact moment to stumble in, bedhead in full disaster. Shit, you guys weren't kidding about having random ass dreams. Jason rolls his eyes. Good morning to you too. Steph ignores him. What, me and Tim? She frowns as if trying to remember her train of thought. What we? involved at some point. Cass raised an eyebrow. Why do you ask? I think I might have kissed him? Damien cringes, making a disgusted face. Do you have to remind me of that, Brown? Steph gapes, her jaw open and closing before finally yelling, You didn't think to mention that? Damien rolls his eyes. I'm doing my best to forget about it even now. Jason's eyes bulge. Tim and Blondie? It was short-lived anyway. Cass pipes up. They're much better friends. Steph whips her head towards her. Excuse me? What? The room stinks of sweat, blood, and the faint chemicals of medicine. Raz stands perfectly still, simply observing. The prisoner twitches weakly in the chair, her once bald head lolling against her shoulder, a thin string of drool and bow hair trailing down her chin. Her body is collapsing in on itself after so much strain, systems failing one by one. Not unexpected. They had to double the dose, far beyond what a weaker mind could endure. But she is no fool, and the truth was not forthcoming from her. His gaze sweeps over her ruined form, trembling hands, labored breath, eyes glassy with the weight of her own betrayal. So stubborn, so clever, she resisted every other method of interrogation for months, never wavering, never slipping. It almost admires her resolve. Almost. But even the strongest minds unbreakable. The serum is a new tool in the arsenal. One Ross wishes they could have developed sooner. It dismantles the very architecture of deception, makes it impossible to speak falsehood, makes evasion taste like acid in the throat. It unravels the mind gently and all at once, like pulling a thread from an intricate tapestry until the whole illusion collapses in on itself. Its effects took longer than he anticipated, but then again, this is no ordinary prisoner. Not like the other weak minded they may use it on in the future. Regardless, it was effective enough in the end. She did eventually speak. She may not have divulged everything she knows. Her body and mind have grown weak, fraying at the edges of sanity, but she told him enough. And what a tale it is! Unexpected, but not unwelcome. The protector has been clever, to be sure, but he has ironically run out of time. Raz turns his head slightly, just enough for his guards behind him to hear. Take her below, he says quietly, and leave her there. She has served her purpose. The sound of boots scuffing the stone follows, then the groan of leather straps releasing. The woman lets out a sound, half gasp, half whimper, as they lift her from the chair like dead weight. Raz does not look at her again. His fingers brush the hilt of the blade at his hip. The time has come to bring his grandson home. End of chapter 17. I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you for listening. See you next week or tomorrow.